going, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Ad Podcast. I have an awesome guest for you today, Matt Baker. But before I get into his intro, I want to give a shout out to our new sponsor, Go High Level. If you are running a business, agency, or personal brand and still juggling 5 different tools for CRM, email, and funnels, stop. Go High Level puts everything in one place. You can manage leads, automate marketing, book appointments, and even build full websites, all from a single dashboard. It's built for growth-minded marketers who want results without the tech headache. Check it out at gohighlevel.com and see why thousands of agencies are switching today. And don't forget to use the link in the show notes. And with that, I will introduce our guest for you guys today, Matt Baker. Matt is Chief Strategy Officer of Deutsch NY. While at the agency, he has led strategy on brands like Budweiser, Reebok, and Cetaphil, to name a few. And prior to that, he was also Chief Strategy Officer at J. Walter Thompson and held strategy and innovation roles at other name shops like Anomaly and Arnold. Matt, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Great to be here. Thank you, Dylan.
So everybody starts off with an origin story. So we know you're from across the pond, and would love to hear a little bit about, where you grew up, where you went to school, and then how did you get into the business?
Okay, yeah, I am that horribly cliched British strategist that is, the New York and America overrun with us, so it's no longer. I get it. There's no novelty there anymore. All right, so I grew up in London, born and bred. My origin story, really, my wife is to blame for all of my my career, I would suggest, because I was at Nottingham with her. We're a college romance, and she was flicking through back in the day, like 100 years ago. Used to get actual magazines with job listings, and I was happily heading towards whatever, consulting, banking, or something really dull. And all the applications were really hard. And she said, look, there's this marketing thing. And she was literally circling it on in the magazine. They just said, throw in a CV, resume, sorry, Americans. And it looks fun. It looks like it's advertising and marketing and stuff. I said, look, I did a course on that. It sounds cool. I just threw it in and forgot about it. And then, however long later, got a call to go in, and it was Omnicom had just begun their Accelerate program, which is a bit like WPP's fellowship, which was, frankly, it's awesome. I arrived at this thing with no idea what it was, and they said, yeah, well, you'll go in this stream, and you'll go around 6 agencies for a year, and you'll go to America and this and that. So that's how I got in. Like somehow wheedled my way onto that in the CRM stream, would you believe it? So started in data and CRM, and I ended up in the UK with RAPP Collins, which is RAPP here. So a direct digital shop, great place. A lot of love for RAPP, a lot of friends there.
I interviewed the president of RAPP London at Cannes this year, so I got to know them a little bit. Yeah.
So so many of the folks there went on to so many interesting roles, running Adam and Eve and starting shops. Really, really great place. And I think especially now with the way that data and performance has sort of come full circle and center stage in all of the industry, having grown up in direct marketing, was a really good sort of training ground. And I started in account management, wasn't in strategy. In fact, I got a really good piece of advice, I think, at the time. I had the choice, go to strategy, go to account, and the head of the strategy department in London said, look, eventually you can go into strategy. If you're good enough, you can go, eventually there's a job there. But if you really want to understand the business, clients, and how we get work done, and how the industry works, and how we literally get stuff through the door, go into account, go and be an account manager and learn the ropes and do that. And back in the day, account managers also wrote briefs and ran mechanicals. You did a lot. So did that, and it was great. And then after 4 or 5 years, got the chance to come out here. So I think in 2007, landed here, been here 20 years. And then eventually after about 3-4 years here at RAPP, got the chance to flip into strategy, and I've never looked back. And then Arnold in digital, and then Anomaly in innovation. And again, all these really great shops, brilliant people. And then my dear friend Lynn Power, who was running JWT, who I worked with at Arnold, gave me one of those offers you can't refuse. She's like, I want a different head of planning at JWT, someone with digital and data. And she, to her credit, she's fought really hard to put a non-brand sort of pedigreed strategist in that role. And I did that for whatever, 3-4 years, and the last 8 years here. So enough of an origin
That's
story.
awesome. Yeah. No, that's great. I think, it's always good to hear, people's backgrounds, and especially, I love hearing how, expats make it over here, and, what the inciting incident was, and, nothing like a good wife to guide you on the right path.
Gets all of the credit for everything.
Yeah, my wife was in the agency space as well. She was in promotions at Warner Brothers, and she was at Omnicom as well at their nonprofit agency called Russ Reed. And
nice.
I learned a lot from her before I ever even stepped foot.
There's a lot of media couples out there. My wife was a journalist, so yeah, she was the same. She was a news anchor, so yeah, we're media couples. What can you do?
Very cool. So, so tell me a little bit about your time at Deutsch. So, I know, were you there kind of during this transitional period where or tell me, for those that don't know, we have a Deutsch out here in California,
yes.
And then there's Deutsch New York. So tell us a little bit about how are those separate, how are they different? Sure. And kind of break down, the differences there. Maybe.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've been separate for a long time, but it's actually, I think it's a lesson in advertising and how consumers work. Right? Once it's in the mind and the brain, it's hard to shake loose. So it doesn't matter how many times you tell people, the messaging has to land. I think DNY, New York, and LA was separate even when I joined. We were separate entities. Separate P&Ls, really very little overlap at all. Great crew, great relationship. At that point, part of the IPG family. But then obviously, I guess 18 months, a couple of years ago, when IPG started divesting some of the creative properties, ourselves, Hill Holiday, more recently RGA, we were fully sold to a TiVo Group, who are based out of Australia and New Zealand. And their first foray into the US was purchasing us and Hill Holiday. So, we carry the DNY name. There's a lot of Deutsch history there, although we, trying to be a little more DNY than Deutsch these days. But it's a long and historied brand from Donny on. So it's for good or for bad, that still is around. And I think we're very different agencies. The way we operate and they operate, I think we're very much gearing up for the changes that we're having. I'm sure we're going to hit AI as a question in a minute, but a lot of our brands, we've traditionally hit a lot of complex brands here. Yes, we've done Bud and Reebok and other things, but we've also done Microsoft and Siemens and pharma and big tech. And I think some of those B2B brands and complex brands, and now, how we manage AI integration into our process is a little, I'm sure, very different. Although, to be fair, I don't know, they might be doing exactly the same. I haven't heard. They're doing well though. Love Deutsche LA.
Yeah. No, they're always good to see, what's going on Dr. Pepper and some of those accounts that they've had forever. Yeah, for sure. All right. So tell me a little bit about the new ownership and the new holding company, and kind of how you're situated within the overall group, and how's it been so far? How's the integration going? You guys are 18 months in. What do you like about being under the new ownership? What's kind of the state of the union with this new marriage? Well, it's post divestiture.
All new, but I think what we're really liking, frankly, is I've lived the dream of big holdcos my entire career. So I joke, I've worked in all of them apart from Publicis, Omnicom, WP, Havas, IPC, Stagwell, IPG. Being part of a TiVo, they're a privately owned, although they're a small holding group, and they have some entities and shared entities in Australia and New Zealand. They're still privately owned, so we have a lot more freedom, frankly. We can do things, without any sort of holdco overlord, red tape. We really are. Cam, our global CEO, likes to have this sort of piratical mentality. So just try stuff and see if it works and move on, and you get to make decisions a lot quicker. You feel that sense of ownership, I think, a little more than we did under IPG, and there's less pressure maybe to use certain partners. We have freedom to work with whoever we want, best in class, and there's some nice fluidity with Hill Holiday as well. So enjoying that freedom for sure. So far so good. Like no downsides, that's for sure.
That's awesome. So in your view, what's the biggest challenge right now for mid-size agencies? You mentioned the Hill Holiday and you guys coming over to this new group, RGA. It seemed to like, IPG was kind of getting ready for the merger conversation, right? Like that. So, I think there's been this kind of pendulum swing of like, for a long time, I saw this diagram on LinkedIn one time, like of like the holding companies are like a big shark, and then you have this like a bunch of fish in the shape of a shark, making up all the independents and the independent holdcos and the small specialty agencies. And I come from my last agency that I was with for 8 years. We were specialists, a vertical, a mile deep and an inch wide in the creator marketing ecosystem. Yep. So there was a period of time where that worked really well for us when, not everybody was doing influencer marketing and not everybody was trying to get into that scope. But then, the pendulum swung to the other end of things 8 years later. And we lost a really big client that wanted to consolidate. A new chief brand officer came in at our biggest client, and they said, we're working with 500 agencies.
Wow. There's
too many people telling our story. We have too many touch points with different companies and putting out different messaging. So they actually rolled up our scope into an experiential agency, a media buying agency, and a PR firm. Yeah. And then we lost that piece of business. It seems like there is kind of this, maybe a swing back to holdcos or having a relationship with like an agency of one. I know a lot of the holdcos like to brand, these agencies that they build out for a specific client. But, what is your kind of take on kind of the independent landscape or the medium-sized agency landscape, and how are you guys competing against the holdcos, or the larger holdcos rather?
Yeah, I think we're going to see, I don't think there's been this much change in the industry. Frankly, if you listen to some folks, I would say argue ever. I think forget media, separations, forget web 1.0, 2.0, rise of social. I think the current uncertainty and anxiety and AI's impact already, like forget what's going to happen. Already the impact you're seeing across the industry in terms of, scopes cut and technology sort of stacking up against some of the RFIs that we're getting. There's going to be plenty of space for independents and mid-size agencies, as you saw. And we fit in that sort of mid-size, sort of quasi-independent, being part of a TiVo group. And part of it, and I've believed this for a while, I think, is about understanding who you're targeting. It's good marketing, right? It's understand that you're not for everybody. You're not going to compete. I don't think we're competing for Fortune 100 brands necessarily right now. I think there's a huge market of fabulous brands with the type of scale that want mid-sized agencies that can still deliver some of the integration. I don't think the integration need is going away at all. I think that we're seeing across all of our clients phenomenal angst and anxiety about how do I manage the change? How do I think about performance and brand and channel bloat and creator economy and influencers and, trying to, especially when a brand and a brand manager is dealing with a smaller team, they need that help. And I think we're definitely trying to carve out a space that still has incredibly strong brand thinking, creative thinking in the way that, Deutsch has always had and DNY now has, but is adopting at pace and really embracing the change of AI and technology. And that means fewer people. I think there's almost this hesitance to say it or believe it's true. It is. AI is changing the way that we staff teams, and I think our model we're calling core and on call, which is really one of, you still want core, high expertise, individuals, real subject matter experts, but then you want an on-call set of freelancers, people that you can scale up and down with, that you have relationships with, that really you can scale up and down quickly. But I think this notion of big bloated teams is a thing of the past. And that's with some of the holdcos and the layers of holdcos and the bigger agency networks. It might work for the handful of multi-billion-dollar, global clients that are out there, but for swathes of the market now and big brands, it's unnecessary. And I think they're feeling that bloat, and they're looking for agencies that can do more with less, and that's definitely what we're focusing on. And also brands that are, I think the DTC world is fascinating. A lot of these brands need to scale at certain points in their growth trajectory, and they want folks that can still manage them in their direct channels, but can help think about brand in a way that they haven't in their early trajectory. So I think we're trying to hit that sweet spot and, of brand and AI. And I think we already seeing a lot of good traction with existing clients and folks that want to talk to us. So far, so good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think seems to be a big trend right now with performance marketers kind of tapping out digital channels and kind of the easy money that was available through running Facebook ads and some of these things, right, that were kind of like set it and forget it type media buys in the past. Right. They're seeing that if their brand doesn't have a larger halo effect, if people don't care about them or think about them or aren't passionate about them, those direct consumer performance channels tend to tap out or become, too expensive. Do you feel like in the race to, measure everything and get as much trackable performance out of media, that brands are starting to swing back to the idea that, you have to invest in some of these core competencies around making people care about your brand, making them not only, maybe be able to recognize you, but actually, think about you in a certain way that can't be always measured through, some type of performance media buy?
I think so. I don't think there's the pressure of delivering on short-term sales is never going away, right? I think it's always about the balance, but I think there are folks out there that have said it well. I love James Herman and some of his writing. He talks about future demand and other things. I think there is definitely a swing back to the middle is how I like to think of it. Just coming to our senses a little bit. The notion that there really are only, a small minority of my category ever in market for a product. I mean, you can argue the case for Snickers or some of these the FMCG, CPG goods, but the truth is you have to build mental availability. Like I'm a huge advocate of the science of brand growth and Eric Bass, and there is enough marketing theory out there now that tells us very clearly through data, longitudinal data, like decades of data, that strong brands just work. Like there's pricing power in it. There's just all of the performance metrics are there to say brand is important. I think there's a very practical conversation that happens where sometimes creative agencies that have been disengaged from media for a long time struggle to then make the leap from brand's important to then, but how do I then manage my budget and my effort and what assets am I building and how do I flight it and plan a campaign so that I am both building future demand and capturing, current demand. And I think that's where DNY and a few handfuls of agencies that have never disintegrated media, they've always had, and we've always had media as part of our offering, are really doing well now, because I think we're able to have a more articulate and practical conversation about what it means to build brands, but also do performance and show returns and and have a sensible conversation about ROAS or ROI. Because we are in the data and we have the teams that understand it.
Do you feel the best allocation is for creative and media to be under one shop, under one team?
I think it's ideal. I
Yeah.
really do. I think it's hard sometimes when the scale of some of these, when your media spend is, $200 million. Look, there are brands that spend $1 billion, Geico, like, for example. When you're at that scale, there's such a strong argument, fiscal argument, commercial argument to make sure that your costs and your efficiencies are, we're talking about $100 million difference. Once you start getting down into the middle of the bell curve of media spend, then yes, like I think the understanding how creative works in channel, so you have the efficacy and efficiency of creative working hand in hand with media, and also media insights informing creative process. Even now with the rise of social, I think you have to implement I would put creator and influencer, I mean that's your world, right, into that mix as well. I think you want, if you're able to manage that as a client, if you're able to manage that as an agency, then the benefits are real. I think they're not hypothetical. They're real. You get to see better work. You see better consistency of work. We've all worked in IATs, right? So these interagency teams, and they can be a handful. Like I think the more, like, you follow the money usually. And I give a lot of credit to clients that do it well, because normally it means they've set very clear boundaries about where money is allocated and what the roles and responsibilities of IA teams are. I remember going to a pitch not long ago, and a big part of the meeting they wanted was on IATs and what's your experience and how does it work and is it good and what does good look like? And I said, first and foremost, it's on you. Like I can talk about what we can do as an IAT lead or what the agency should be doing, but it's on the client to help manage that process. And unless you set the right boundaries, then you're doomed to failure from the outset. So I don't know, I went way off topic there, but so yes, I think that the more that you can have in one shop without losing the efficiencies is got to be better, and we see it better on clients where we have that for sure.
Yeah, well, I think the IAT conversation is relevant because sometimes I feel like it's done just in an effort to maybe the client thinks that if they have strategy with one holdco and media with one holdco and creative with another holdco, then they're like creating this layer of checks and balances, and they can kind of everybody's policing each other. But I've been definitely in situations where
more like celebrity deathmatch, right?
Yeah, it becomes like a knife fight. Like everybody's always looking for ways to
jump ball. Yeah,
they're always undercutting each other, trying to and you also talk about the blending of if creator marketing or influencer marketing is a huge part of your remit these days, that there's always this argument of oh, well, creative should have it because they're creating film and their brand stewardship and it's casting. So, therefore the creative should have it. And then PR is fighting for it because it originally came out of an earned media channel or now most influencer campaigns have some type of paid element at least. So, and then the media agency is saying, oh, well, they come with audience and their unique data targeting layers. So, there's a lot of ways to kind of unpack that Swiss Army knife, and there's probably good justification for all of them, really, and depending on how the campaign's set up.
I think it is reductive to say there's a very clear-cut answer. I've seen what worked for us, and I've seen the benefits of having that integration. But I mean, one of the things I've come full circle on in thinking about strategy and teams is, I think at JWT, I implemented an integration of social strategy into sort of mainstream strategy. We're all strategists now. We're all going to do everything, and we're going to do comm strategy and brand planning and social strategy. And it was okay for the time, but I've come full circle on that. I think you do there are moments, especially in social with creator economies and the nuances of the platforms, to have people that are just seeped in it. So, I mean, it's why we built Sochi Studio here. We have a separate team built inside the agency called Sochi Studio, and they're integral. I mean, we sit together, but they do have different ways of operating. We have different types of talent. We have talent that are a blend of account people, creators themselves, on-camera talent, producers, because I think it demands a different type of skill set, and it also demands that you're just in it. I think you have to be so swimming in the moment of, social. I think one of the questions we talked about is, how do you live in culture? I think if you're living in culture in social and with creators and influencers who are so core now, if not the dominant part of sort of cultural conversation, then you have to have people in there that are living it day in, day out. So that's where, yes, integrated, and we have that, but they are a distinct team and have a distinct set of sort of remits and skills and talents and pricing and operating models, and that's important. Not expecting them to work to the same rules as everybody else.
Yeah, let's sit on that idea of Soshi Studios for a second, because I think it's interesting. You mentioned this kind of hybrid skill set of being strategists on one hand, because they're living and breathing these social platforms and they understand who the creators are, and they are aware of things that are bubbling up and trending moments. Sure. But then they also have to be folks who can create and step in front of the camera as well, maybe even.
Yeah.
So they're kind of almost like hybrid creators or creators. I've worked with so many creators over my career, both people who worked at agencies with me, right, who were still not quite, at the moment where they were ready to do the influencer thing full time. So they were basically working as a creative director or an accounts person or some kind of role within an agency to, keep the lights on, so to speak. But then they were, being a creator part-time on the side. And sometimes you could say, how do you draw a division of like the side hustle, and like what happens if a brand comes they work on that's competitive? Like there's a lot of, rules and roadblocks that you need to, or there's guardrails that need to be set up for that. So do you guys look for that type of talent? Like, do you look for people who are, have an audience and are established creators, when you think about staffing that group?
For sure. I think for us, it's less about audience and more about the creator skill set. So again, I get some definitions get blurry, and I understand there's a solid Venn diagram moment in the middle, but if influencers really come with an audience as well as being creators, I think we're more geared towards creators who have begun to maybe build an audience or build a platform, or have we've had some folks who are pure culture commentators, some folks who have a design, like they have a design platform when they talk about home decor, but through that process also, taking briefs from brands. And it's interestingly very rare that we found any true conflicts, maybe once. And they're not hard to manage. I think you need, especially with young talent coming into the industry, it's hard enough to attract good people. I think, A, we need that talent desperately, I think, as an industry. And B, if you start to put up barriers, you can only go so far. Or, we've had folks working 3 days and 2 days off to focus on their creator work or side hustle. I think that's great. I think as long as that flexibility again of the model, the core and on call, allows you to just, I think, be an attractive proposition for that community they also enjoy learning some of the rigor of brand and media. Like they've grown up understanding natively the platforms. They're great natural talent and have their own sort of creative lane. But there's a lot that I think we as an industry can help them grow in terms of understanding how brands work, how media work, how PR work, how they integrate, managing client relationships, managing the commercial side of their side hustle. And I think it can work. It can be very codependent on word, just good deal on both sides.
Yeah, I like that. Do you think as we we'll get into AI and how it's actually or just kind of the fear of displacing jobs and things like that within the industry, but do you think that's a good way for people in the industry to kind of future-proof their careers? Like if they are creators and they have an audience, that's something that AI can't just displace overnight, right? Like
Can't it? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty
We'll
impressed
see.
with, AI, Gen AI avatar like creators out there, but I can't see the downside. Look, I don't think it's for everyone. I think it's like anything. There, being a creator is not only is it a talent, but it's work. Like I see the guys that coming out of college who are creators in their own stream. They work hard at that. Like they're not just not doing an easy side hustle. These things take time, they take effort, they take planning, and it takes guts to put yourself out there as well. Like it really does. So I think if you have that aptitude and you want to go for it. Like it's not going to hurt your career, it's going to help you. But I'm not sure it's not going to be good for everyone, that's for sure. And look, I don't need to tell you, it's hard. Like it's hard. There's a long tail of making no money as a creator. So.
Yeah, big time. Well, you'll see that this was the first episode I've ever done an ad for. So this is the 200th episode. It took me 200 episodes.
Okay, I feel kind of weirdly honored.
Yeah, it's kind of it is kind of a cool
ad support.
It is kind of a yeah, exactly. So it took 200 episodes to get a sponsor from me. So
it's a grant. It's a good thing, though.
Yeah, totally. Well, so I wanted to ask one more question about the Soci Studios model.
Mm-hmm.
So, another thing that's always been hard for brands is the ability to jump on social media trends. Sure. And, the average trend on social media, kind of is born and, achieves peak velocity and then kind of starts to fall off the other side of the curve in about 5 days. Right. And then even harder if you're trying to identify the trends before they kind of crescendo and you're not trying to jump on the down slope or when it's kind of already been there, done that. So is that part of, having this Soci Studios model and this type of workforce is so you can, engage and bring things to client and act fast? And, are clients getting better at, giving agencies the latitude of not having 10,000 layers of approvals and legal and all the hoops that you used to have to jump through in order to, get a piece of, culturally responsive work out there fast?
I would say it's a broad spectrum. Some, but I think you nailed it. I don't think it's hard, especially if you've gone to the effort like we have of setting up a team that has that remit, that has that skill set, that, we have, predators, whatever I don't know if everyone calls them that anymore, but producers, editors. We have folks that can go and make stuff quickly. The talent, our strategists, they're on the platforms, they see the means, they have 10 ideas a day. I don't think it's hard for agencies to activate. It is infinitely harder for clients to build the operational sort of system to allow for that speed and that responsiveness. And again, it runs the gamut. I would say there are fewer than there are. It is not the majority that can do it still.
Yeah.
And again,
totally.
Risk and reward. There has to be a commercial argument for jumping on memes. I think what's not even memes that does it a disservice, I know, but being culturally relevant of the moment and in conversations, there is an obvious upside, but it's not always apparent. And I don't know if a lot of the ROAS or ROI arguments have made their way into that conversation in a way that clients are confident that it's worth the effort. And again, I think it's interesting. I had 2 conversations in the last week, ironically, about brands that are necessarily in culture. They're brands that have to rely on and definitely both positively appropriate and sort of dovetail with culture and try to do good things. But both of these brands talked about feeling like they and others spend too much time chasing trends to the detriment of building a consistent, culturally relevant, still impressive, engaging brand. They feel like, man, we should spend more time on who we are, what we do, what's our role, great, good, science of brand growth, distinctive asset building equity in some of our core assets and messages, and being more thoughtful and consistent with how they speak, and not, in their words, wasting as much time chasing a trend to just be on trend. And these were serious marketers in big categories, and I think that was interesting. I don't want to over rotate on that as a N of 2 in the last couple of weeks, but it was interesting to hear that kind of swing to our previous conversation, like swing back to the middle. Man, we need to think about building our brand, who we are, consistent media, consistent paid presence, while still doing social, engaging creators and influencers, but perhaps not being as focused on having to be always on trend or of the moment. So that was interesting.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. Well, it made me think about the idea that, the right brand with the right idea can create the trend.
Oh.
They don't always have to be chasing it. They can, whether it was like, I think you could probably say that Dove really created the trend around using, real people and not, photo touching their models, and kind of moving away from that, kind of like perfect idea of like what glamored beauty looked like. And, that was a trend that many others imitated and chased after the fact. So I think, brands with their campaigns and the creators and the celebrities that they work with, they can oftentimes be the inciting incident around a trend or something.
I think that's probably much. I think it's probably much healthier. I think it's much. I think it's a much more thoughtful, longer term strategy. It starts to build the equities. Like we talk about mental availability a lot. Like Sarah Carter's a fabulous strategist out of Adam and Eve in the UK, and she famously has a post-it note on her desk that says, "Your customer doesn't care about your brand." I think it's really important. Like I love that she has that, and I think it's something that we're really guilty of, and our clients are guilty of often as well. We're just thinking people just they're not thinking about us and our brands and the nuances that we're thinking about. And I think it's very easy to get caught up in that world, and they have a very small amount of brain space for our products, our brands, and what we have to say. And I think therefore the more consistent, the more entertaining, the more relevant we can be. Doesn't mean about the downside of trend hopping is that message can change, even if you're thematically being consistent perhaps, but that very different sort of activating of your core thought, it can be a little schizophrenic. And I think there's a lot to be said for being consistently on your core equities and consistently hitting a message. I think the folks at System 1 have done a great job of disproving the notion of wear out in advertising. I think wear in is actually much less talked about. I think we get bored of ourselves so quickly, and like our consumers don't. Like, you can rerun work that's good work. Don't get, you can't rerun crap, but you can run for a long time, like solid good work, and it can work for you, and you can come back to that work. So I think there's a swing back to some of that thinking. And look, nobody's giving up the notion of being culturally relevant or on some of these trends. And I love your point about maybe creating trends when you're core to who you are, and then you activate with celebrities and creators or of a moment around a cultural moment or a sports moment. Like, we've done a lot of that with Bard and Bush. But man, know who you are and really hammer that, like, again and again and again. The best brands in the world are so good at it, and it doesn't have to get old. Like, the math is easy. You have to be familiar and you have to be fresh. Like, and we forget that a lot. We focus a lot on the fresh, and maybe not as much on the familiar. Like, it has to be easy. It has to be familiar.
I love that. I wanted to ask you about a trend that I've been seeing recently in the pitch process. I advise an AI consumer insights tool, and we did a demo for an agency the other day, and they texted me a few days later, and they're like, "Hey, we're in an RFI right now for this healthy snacking brand. We have to put together a 10-minute video. That's the ask, for this RFI stage of the pitch. and we would love for you to screen record that demo that you did for us, for this brand, and send us 30 seconds of film, and we'll include it in our pitch. And I was like, oh wow, that now we're adding, we're creating B-roll. But have you guys
Make it till you make it, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's almost like all the Hollywood casting has moved to like self-tape. People are taping on their iPhones and stuff, and there's not as much like showing up to casting rooms until actors get work. So have you guys seen this trend of like video submissions for pitches, at least for like the RFI stage of a pitch? And have you guys participated in any of those, or what do you think about that if you haven't?
I don't think it's a secret. Maybe I'm going to get in trouble with this. I don't know. But Pile is the only consultancy that's really mandated for years, forever. And they're a great consultant. Part of their process has always been submitting I think it's up to 10-minute video. And I've done so many in my career. I've lost count. CVS, RVing, a bunch of others. It's but I think it's peculiar to their process. So, and look, they're big, so they run plenty of big pitches, and we know that team really well. So, they have their way of doing things. But I think in 20 years I haven't had another consultancy or pitch ask for a video submission. No.
Huh.
The Pile video is quite famous in the
interesting.
in the
okay. Well, I guess
you've got to do a Pile video. Okay, all right. If Pile listen to this, said with love. We're not doing the 10-minute videos. It used to be and to their credit, they always said it. They always said, look, don't go overboard. Do it on your phones. And of course, agencies being agencies, I remember one we were pitching Go RVing just pre-pandemic, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And did we do a production? We hired an RV and we went to a campsite and we built a fire and we did the video around a fire. I mean, it was fun. It was like an outing for the team. If any of my old colleagues hear this, they'll laugh because they'll remember it well. But man, I think a lot of agencies, especially post-pandemic now, are just really back to we're going to phone it on it. We're going to film it on our phone. We'll do the B-roll. We'll add in case studies. But I think no one's dropping, $50,000 on a video anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just thought it was, and I got to watch the whole video, and I thought, it's kind of a cool, they had some of the senior team interviewing the junior strategists, right. So it wasn't like they weren't just talking at the camera, but they were kind of facilitating a conversation, and then like you said, case study videos. Yeah. And then a little bit of UI from some tools and stuff. So yeah, I was just curious because I hadn't, but it sounds like this might be some usual suspects. So
yes, there was no hiding that one. Exactly who you were talking about. So that good old Pile.
I love it. So so at Deutsch, you've worked on some really high profile brands. We talked about Budweiser and Reebok. Is there a campaign that stands out or a project that you're most proud of?
Wow, you have to pick the favorite of my children. Is that what you're saying?
It doesn't have to be your favorite, but if there's one that comes to mind, maybe it could be from recent times that you were excited about, that you guys had a lot of fun on, or it was especially effective, or you could talk about the award cycle. I think awards are important, but it sometimes feels like it's, done in service to the industry versus client. So I don't know. I'm a little bit,
I have maybe an unpopular point of view on, especially the award cycles. Give me an Effie every day of the week. I know it sounds trite. And agencies are like, oh no, it's all about effectiveness. But man, do you see agencies falling over themselves for Cannes Line? I think Cannes have had a tremendous number of issues around the efficacy of some of that. Look, and some of it's brilliant, some of it works wonderfully, but I think we're out of our minds and have lost the plot if we think that creativity alone is important in our industry. We're here to sell products for our clients, and if you're not doing that, I don't know what we're doing. It's like awarding a doctor for good stitching when the patient's dead. What are you doing? Makes no sense to me. So give me an Effie. But I mean, you said Bud, and it's not because it's Bud, but man, we had a great team on that and did some great work, and we did some work. So it was interesting. The Bud work wasn't US; it was all ex-US. And Bud's a very different brand, XUS. We were hired to launch and do the campaign globally for their soccer sponsorships, which were massive, like the European, the English Premier League and La Liga. These are huge sponsorship deals, so hugely important for them. And outside the US, Bud is a much more premium product. It's an import. They have these cool aluminium bottles. I mean, it's a great product. And we did an activation with Lionel Messi. So again, you're working with some fabulous talent, but it was actually a classic, brilliant IAT moment. We worked with Copper 90, who are a brilliant, football vertical expert. They were a media platform and experiential crew. We'd done all the brand idea work and platform work, and we did something called 644, which is Messi we knew that year he was going to beat Pele's record for the highest number of goals for a single club. We didn't know when it was going to happen, obviously. Could happen anytime. So we had to create a lot of content that could run in the lead up to it. So we had, you name it, posts for every goal, building excitement and the like. But then it was just such a gem of an idea and such a cheeky idea, and such credit to ABI are great marketers across the board. Marcel's a brilliant CMO over there, and they really understand, I think, great marketing, great advertising. And what we did is when he finally got that goal and broke his record, we produced 644 individual bottles with the number of the goal, like number 170 or whatever, and sent that bottle to the goalkeeper that was scored on. with a hand. And some of these keepers got, a dozen, 24 bottles. With a handwritten note from Messi, thank you for being a part of my journey. So it's a great cheeky moment. And of course, all of these goalkeepers, and some of them are, many of them are superstars in their own right, went to social media and they were like, oh, Lionel, thank you. We love it. Congratulations. So that the earned media moment was extraordinary. And we had a whole host of other activations around it. But interestingly, and we won. So I'm going to be a hypocrite now. Can Line, Effies, you name it. It was a brilliantly awarded pick. The bit that really sunk in, though, was only this last year. We were doing some work for Brooklyn FC. So Brooklyn has a new female professional football team, soccer team. Sorry, I keep forgetting I'm here. And I was running a strategy session for them here, and there were, young team, professional footballers and others. And we were talking about good advertising, good marketing, and we hadn't said anything. They played back 644, the Messi campaign. They said, as fans of soccer, as soccer players, we remember this being like the most incredible brand sort of integration in the sport, and completely.
Wow.
And I was like, we do that. So I think so rarely do you really see anything hitting culture and breaking through. I think we're really trite when we talk about brands influencing culture. I don't think brands influence culture very often. I think at best we do a good job of contributing to culture and being a part of culture, but really being in it and part of it, and then hearing it played back, that was definitely a highlight. So yeah, great one.
That's really cool. So they didn't approach you guys for the pitch because they knew you were the agency. They literally showed the work, and then you guys were able to be like, yep, no problem. That was us.
Yeah, that was us.
That's pretty cool.
It doesn't happen often, but when it does.
Yeah, I love it. All right. How do you foster collaboration or healthy tension between strategists and creatives to get to the best ideas?
Definitely more collaboration than healthy tension. I think always make it about the work. I think it is interesting. You need that mutual respect. I think we suffered during COVID. I don't want to like hammer working from home and the like, but I really think it all boils down to relationships ultimately. Like it's not all professional. Some of it's personal. This is anybody that in the industry that's ever written something, a creative person. Interestingly, the first time I had true empathy for a creative team was when I flipped a strategy and had to write my first brief and kind of put this object out there. As an account manager, I was managing stuff. When you write something and you're putting a little bit of yourself out there, it's a really personal moment, and to have it critiqued and like torn apart, but it's it's personal. There's no other way to say it. And I think you only get then the positive tension if you've spent the time, like any relationship, sort of paying into the into the relationship and spending time with people and helping people. And I think the best relationships I've had with creatives, and thank God I've had some wonderful like CCO partners and through my career just creative partners, is raising your hand, helping, being useful. Like creative teams they're at the hardest end of our industry, like having to put themselves out there with ideas all the time, and like our job's to help them and make it easier and, you know, defend their work to the death sometimes. And so that, I think it's less, once you've built that trust that I'm in it for the work, I'm in it to do the right thing, then you can really have the harder conversations. You really can say, man, I don't think this is, for whatever reason, there, or, you know, this is a great idea, but man, for whatever reason, it's not right for this client, or it's not right for this pitch, or, you know, that it's all relationship built. So being together helps, like spending time together helps. I was joking with someone recently, I actually miss work travel. Like, it sounds ridiculous, especially the like disaster that is our like US domestic air travel. But as long as you don't have to go through Chicago, which is even worse than worst airport in the country, I think. Spent 6 hours there the other week. I think there's just, you spend time with people. Like, we're a people business, and I think it's the same with clients. I think we've suffered not having enough time face to face in a room with clients. I think you build trust and you can sell better work and, you know, do better work when you have better relationships. And I don't think there's a secret to that. I think it's time, and it's respect, and it's trust.
Where are you guys with kind of office policy in order to foster those types of relationships, and also, you know, relationships among teams members, and just the creativity that happens from, like, you know, water cooler conversation or sharing a meal? You know, what's your guys' policy, and how are you guys, you know, how are you guys emerging from COVID with that, that concept?
I think we're pretty standard. I think a lot of folks, especially here in New York, are 3 days a week. We're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office. And we're pretty strict. Like, you need a reason. If you're not here, then we have to have said it's okay to not be here. And like, we're human, so clearly, like, people have reasons. But we do believe that there's, you know, power and value in spending that time together. And Monday, Fridays, we're remote, and I think people like that. I think, like, they like the flexibility for whatever you need to do Mondays and Fridays, and we're not sitting on people. Like, if there's life to deal with and they want to time shift. But 3 days in the office, and then just we try to workshop stuff. I'm really trying with clients now. Actually, I think we're okay on the agency side, but I think clients, I really want us to get either more money in the budgets for travel, or just some muscle memory for, no, certain meetings we should be together. I was out in Chicago recently for a creative presentation, and there was almost a surprise. Oh, wow, you guys came out for this? I was like, yeah, it's a big meeting. Like, I know it's only an hour on a Thursday, but it's a big campaign for us, and it's the first creative presentation. And I don't care what you say, there's body language that you can't read on a screen. And, you know, there's the meeting after the meeting, and there's, you know, being in the room makes a difference.
It does. Have you guys found ways to kind of optimize for more time with clients? You know, one of the things that I've noticed is, you know, pre-COVID, I used to travel around the country, whether it was to agencies or brands, for lunch and learns,
right?
You know, half my time. And then post-COVID, I've still only done 2 lunch and learns, and it was actually at the same agency. Right. And we have a big campaign coming up with them, and I think that's kind of an example of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
You know, are you able to, like, I know there's some tools to, like, track when your clients are speaking, and you guys are in New York, so that's nice, because, like, clients probably come through New York 3 or 4 times a year. Like, do you find ways to kind of, you know, bump into clients more often when you don't necessarily have
is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Or just, you know, I feel like, business events seem to be like kind of the new
No, we really
way
are,
that at least,
but it's relatively new. I don't want to take, I don't want to say or pretend that we've been doing it for a long time. We're recently trying to make a concerted effort to, in fact, we have an event here on Tuesday. I'm moderating a panel of synthetic data. Well, they're not really. I don't know if you know this, Chris. Evidenza, it's Springboards, and it's Proxy.ai. So three really, and we've worked with Proxy.ai a lot. I'm fascinated by Springboards. It's a brilliant company, and Evidenza is great. The two, Peter and John from LinkedIn, that started that company, again, fabulous AI-driven synthetic data company. And we're holding an event here. I'm moderating a conversation. We're bringing their points of view to the good, the bad, and the ugly of working with synthetic data, synthetic research. I think a lot of our clients are beginning to experiment in that. We are very much using some of the tools in the strategy process, and now more and more in the creative process. So we want to hold a conversation. We've got a live event. We've got people coming in, we're feeding them, and going to put some liquor out, and hopefully have a nice after work event, and we're going to live stream it, and we're going to create content off it, and we're going to make that a series. We're calling it the Unpack series. It's largely focused on AI and technology, but we're going to touch a lot of things, media and others. So yeah, we're really trying, and we'll get some clients here. We'll have some clients just log in and stream it and see it that way. But I think you have to give back. Like you have to give people an excuse to participate. So you have to show some value, and I think these conversations are really important right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I interviewed somebody else a few weeks ago who ran a study on Gen Alpha, and they did kind of three things. They did like a YouGov traditional online survey. They did a in-room focus group of kids and parents, and then they did a synthetic audience. And I think the synthetic audience produced 95% match with the other two groups as far as like how accurate it was.
Yes.
What is it's crazy. Like, what are your thoughts on kind of that space in general? And do you think it's at the point where it can replace some of these older, slower models, or do you still kind of have to do a little of everything?
I'm not fully on it's going to replace everything by any stretch. I think we're always going to find nuance when there's a reason ethnographies work well, when you sit in somebody's house and see how they consume and how they behave and what they do. And I think that there are certain types of human methodologies that are going to be hard to synthesize. That said, this crew at Evidenza, I give them a huge amount of credit. They've done a lot of validating of their research against research that's been done by, I think they've got work from Ernst & Young, they've got work from BlackRock, they've got work from some big, very trustworthy brands that have immense amounts of survey data, and they've replicated that data in their synthetic studies and gotten, to your point, incredibly good match rates. And they talk a lot about their model being geared particularly towards B2B or very hard to find audiences, where it can be, you might want to speak to 1,000 CIOs in Fortune 500 companies, but you can't because there's only 500. Or and even if you could afford it, both monetarily and in time, like these things can be $1 million and a year long. I think what they're finding is if you can get 85% of that product done in a matter of weeks at a fraction of the cost, then man, you need a very compelling reason to go back to the old ways of doing things. So I think that's, especially with hard to find audiences, really, really, really interesting, and it's going to take, I think, hold really quickly. Proxy.ai, I think, are fascinating. They don't talk about themselves as being synthetic data, more that they ingest a tremendous amount of narrative data, so consumer language, and then apply modeling and AI on top of that to build narrative threads, to build personas, to both create strategic creative territories and then validate those territories against those audiences. So we recently did a pitch, and I used their data and their workflow, and it was fabulous. Like, it was in the diabetes space, and we didn't cross-referenced survey data, but we cross-referenced it with real diabetic patients, with certified diabetic coaches, and it absolutely stood up against all of the qualitative, let's say, insights, and it was fast, and it included global nuance. It translated, European trends in language. I mean, it's an impressive platform, and I think that's just two of many now. So it's coming, it's real, and it's going to change how we work for sure.
Is it especially helpful with an audience like that, where like you would normally have like HIPAA constraints and things?
Yeah, it's without a doubt. Like on the patient side and on the HCP side, on the professional side, which again falls into that hard to find audience and expensive audience. You can do that work on that platform and be really confident in the insights and the data that it's giving you. So yeah, impressive.
Brave new world,
man. Seriously, embrace it. Like that's what I say to everyone. Like just jump. You've really got to jump in, and not just jump. Like hands on keyboards. Like you've got to be, especially senior folks. Look, we're very much player coach sort of mentality here. We're, mid-size. We don't have massive teams, and like all the senior folks here are hands on keyboards. You've got to be in the platforms doing the work. I think on every level. Like if you don't want that muscle to atrophy anyway, but with all of the new technology and the new ways of working, like you have to be in there and doing the work. And like I love it. Like it's going well, and clients are fascinated by it. Like, yeah, there's nervousness, and there's, can you validate it? How real is it? But these are that's why we're holding panels like the one we're having next week. It's why you have to ask the hard questions and then see if the data stands up. I don't think anyone's going to go in blindly, but man, if there's a lot of signals that this is working and good.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to, what do they say? The best disinfectant is sunlight, right? Like having the panel that you guys are having, where clients can come and interact with the people behind it. I think, and ask questions in a public forum. That's an exciting way to build community and build adoption. So. All right, Matt. Well, I know I'm keeping you late on the East Coast. Thanks for spending an hour with the audience tonight. Anything you want to plug or send people to, or ways to connect?
No, I mean, I'm LinkedIn, and I'm there, and like check out DNY. We're publishing on AI. Find us like this. You can live stream this event on Tuesday. Like it's no limit on the folks that can live stream it. If you're in New York, swing by. We'll always squeeze you in. Cheese and wine. In New York, but no, I really appreciate it. These are important conversations about how things are changing, because they are changing, but hopefully for the better. So we're having a good time, and I really appreciate the time to talk about it as well.
Of course. Well, for the New York listeners, I would encourage you guys to check that event out. Sounds pretty fun. If I was there, I'd definitely be seeing it. So, all right. Well, with that, Matt, I will thank you so much for coming on. And for all of our viewers at home, if you guys are watching the show for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening to the show, whatever podcast platform you might be listening on, if you give us an honest review, that's how we find a larger audience organically. And last but not least, if there's a strategist out there, or somebody at an agency land or at a brand that is grappling with some of these questions around how to implement AI or how to build a team that can be responsive to the speed of social, don't forget to share the show. And with that, I will